Good evening. It's Friday night. It is bang on 7 o'clock, and we have done it for the first time in 36 episodes. Dennis, we've started on time. 7 o'clock, bang on the button. Good evening, mate. How you doing?
I'm fine, thanks, Cammy. Nothing to do with me with starting in time. It's you that does the buttons.
That's it, exactly, precisely. So that's us done. It's always
Yep,
easier when it's a nice, short post production meeting and whatever else. You know what I mean?
yep.
So, good evening. How's the week been? What a difference it is in weather like this.
Yeah, the last 2 nights have been warm with that east wind disappearing. It's been great. I think
Yep.
we're going to go back to some rain tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
Uh, but as April, you don't expect anything like this. So it's been a bonus. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, we'll definitely take it. We'll definitely take it. So,
Yeah,
what we're
that's
going to
great.
do, we're going to try and rattle through tonight. I'm working tomorrow. Obviously, for anybody who's a regular listener, next week's show will be recorded due to holiday commitments. So, we'll record it on a Thursday, probably before the Rangers game goes out. Dennis and I will record that just before the Rangers game. Obviously, that's where we are in terms of the next couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Dennis, it's obviously been a big week. European football started, but we'll come to that towards the end of the show tonight. Shall we start down in England with the English Premiership?
Yeah. hmm Yeah, well, obviously last week gave us some decent games, and we'll start with the Saturday fixtures with Villa again doing really well and beating Notts Forest 2-1. Uh, West Ham getting a good draw. Again, I watched a bit of it and it was near the best in the world, but again, you look at it and West Ham, I think, are just battling to make sure that they're gathering points, but they're not going to set the hell on fire. And as we spoke about it last week, it'll be a change of players that'll be needed in there to get them in a challenging position of where West Ham expect to be. Bournemouth again doing all right. I think they've been in a position when you say Bournemouth sitting in 10th in the league, who would have said that? So I think they've done exceptionally well this year.
Yeah,
Ipswich going down 2-1 to Wolves. Obviously, that's doom and gloom
leading
for Ipswich. We know that.
leading 1-0 in that game too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so they've gone. Or
Yeah, I
is it?
think so. I think so.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question of doubt that they're sitting there on 20 points, and the next team above them is Wolves and 32 points. So you've got to
Yeah.
say they're gone. You know,
Had they
Crystal
won that
Palace.
last week, they would have taken them to 6 points, But
Yeah,
yeah, even that at this time of the season's a big make up. So the Wolves have
yeah,
hit a bit of form the last few weeks.
they have
They've done
change of
enough to pull
managers
away
done
from
it.
Ipswich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely has done. Obviously, Southampton relegated last week, but we'll touch on that in a minute or two. But it
Yeah.
looks like the same three sides that came up are the three sides that have been back down.
Yeah, I was trying to look and see when that was last the same. I couldn't find anywhere. I didn't go far enough back, maybe, but three coming up. I might be wrong. Could have been 2 years ago. I don't know. The same three that come up went straight back down again, and you would imagine that they would have a wee bit more about them, and at least two or three to stay up.
Mhm.
I just find that very strange. But you just need to look at the amount of defeats that the bottom three have had. I mean, I don't know when Leicester last had a victory. But Wolves, when you look at them, you just mentioned them, is looking at the last 6 games, they've only lost one, and the last 3 matches they've won. So they've had a great transformation since the management team come in, and they've done exceptionally well because they looked doom and gloom when they
Yeah.
were playing, and I actually thought, oh, they're almost a certainty to go down. Then they changed the manager, and things done really well for them. So they're looking good. I think there's a wee bit more pressure on Wolves than there is saying West Ham, who are sitting 3 points above them, because I think with Graham Potter and Billy Reid going in there was a safety factor, whereas Wolves were really under pressure. And I think that's maybe the difference between the performances in relation to uh, Wolves really needing to get them, whereas West Ham, I think, were fairly comfortable from the time that they actually come in. So
Mhm.
Crystal Palace, good result, beating Brighton Hove Albion 2-1, and Everton and Arsenal 1 each. That was the Saturday fixtures. Man United and Man City are boring, nothing each game. I watched a bit of that, and we've seen the bit I've seen. I did think it was boring. Somebody else
Yeah.
might. say otherwise, but I just think, oh, where are they? What's happened to these two teams who were absolutely world beaters a couple of years ago? Then you've got Tottenham, who put to bed Southampton's possible existence in the Premier League. I think it was never going to happen anyway. And then Fulham beat Liverpool 3-2. What a surprise that was. And Fulham well worthy of that result. Again,
Yeah.
a match that I watched. It was decent. You know something, though? I don't know where Mo Salah's went to. See, before the PSG games, he was absolutely magnificent.
Yeah.
And then he played PSG, and the boy Mendes at fullback just took the wind out of the boy's sails.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's went. He's just never turned up since the matches. And,
Nope.
he's there, but not at the same level he was. I mean, he was absolutely outstanding for Liverpool, and half the reason that they'll win the league. But they're struggling a wee bit here to get some form and actually look as if they are, going to run away with it. And that was what we thought maybe a month or two ago.
I think he's obviously done enough in the past, because he did sign a 2-year deal today. So he's obviously done enough. Got a 2-year deal. Rewarded with a 2-year contract, and that'll see him out. I think.
Cammy, he's one of the best players in the world.
Yeah,
definitely one of the best players in the world. And up into the PSG game, I would have said he's in the top half dozen without any problem. But as I say, it's just his form's dipped. Everybody can't go through the full season, or very few can, with the performances that he was turning in. So, I think he's quite entitled to dip just a little bit.
Yeah.
Brentford drawing nothing each with Chelsea. Chelsea, I sometimes wonder how they've got to fourth spot in the league, but they're there. They've got good players in that team, though. It's really changed around, and they're starting to do something, Chelsea, but it's not enough for me to actually say they can win the Premier League. But we'll see what happens with them.
I think it'll be a while before they win the Premier League. I think you'll have a resurgence next year at Manchester City. Arsenal are going to have to do something, in terms of Arteta. He really has to at least mount another serious challenge. And Liverpool, I think next season as well, should go from strength to strength once that manager's been in there and get his feet under the table. So I think the English Premier League just promises to go from strength to strength in the next 2 or 3 seasons. I still don't think Chelsea are going to have enough to mount a serious, consistent challenge throughout the season. I think they're going to be a decent cup side, as they've proved already, and I think they are going to probably win the Conference League in Europe. Purely simply because there's nobody else in that, and obviously that'll be one for the history books. But no, I think I agree with you. Chelsea have got a few good individual players. Again, a squad that's just absolutely massive. Far too big a squad of players.
That sometimes is more difficult to handle, and maybe a team that's got some injuries and they're getting the best out of a smaller squad. I think that, from my point of view, I would rather have that than the amount of players, as you say, that Chelsea's got. They're everywhere. Yeah. They're scattered 100%. All over the world as well. But if you look at the league, Liverpool's still sitting there on 73 points. Arsenal in second at 62 points. Notts Forest, 57. Chelsea, 53. Newcastle, 53. Then you've got cut-off points when you start to look at Champions League. That lot are in it. And then you've got the rest that are still battling. Man City, 52 points. Aston Villa, 51. Fulham, 48. And Brighton, 47. Now, if you look at Aston Villa, I just can't believe the season that they're actually having. Mm-hmm. They have punched above their weight from day one and have maintained it. They really have. I think that if you were to look at team of the season, you've got to look and split it in my eyes between Notts Forest and Aston Villa, from where they've came from and what you would expect from them when the season starts.
Yep.
And Aston Villa to still be in the Champions League is the reason I would say that, because they've done exceptionally well up to now. You look at Fulham, they're hot and cold. win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. That's the way they seem to go. And that
Yeah,
inconsistency is the reason that they're not up in that top half dozen. Brighton's Brighton, but I'll tell you what, they have lost their strength there of potentially getting into Europe. My eyes, anyway. We losing the last two games and drawing the match before that. And that's a big 6 points when they're sitting in 47 at this moment in time. They could be sitting up there in what, fourth spot even.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it is what it is. Bournemouth, we touched about, decent. They've had a great season. Crystal Palace, for me, always blows hot and cold. But I'll tell you what, they've had a great run. Last five results, they've had 4 victories and 1
Mhm.
draw. Yeah, and
And I think Mateta coming back for them is a big thing as well.
yes,
You know,
yes,
since he's come back for that injury,
yeah,
horrific injury from the goalkeeper, the
yeah,
goalkeeping assault, if you like. You know, I think Mateta is a big thing
yeah,
for Crystal
definitely.
Palace. You know, so no, I
Right.
mean it's. Sorry, on you go.
No, on you go. You carry on.
No, I was going to say. I mean, you look across that Premier League. You know, from top to bottom, as you say, at the top, Liverpool, Arsenal. I'm going to correct you because if we've got any listeners in Nottingham, you'll be getting us hung. You know, it's obviously Nottingham Forest,
What did I say?
Notts Forest. You've consistently said Notts Forest about 3 times. Honestly, if we get any listeners from Nottingham or Notts County, you're going to get absolutely strangled. Apparently, that's
Is that Cardinal Singh?
oh mate, that's a cardinal sin. That's it, you know. So I was watching something on YouTube
No.
the other night, and they were talking about the shortest 4 derbies in the UK, and one of them is obviously Nottingham Forest and Notts County, and that's what the presenter was saying. She says it's just one of these things you do not do is call Nottingham Forest, Notts Forest, or Notts County, Nottingham County. You know, so even though they're literally
So
they're almost as close as Dens Park and Tannadice, you know. So there you
I
go. But
have
no,
all my life known them as Notts Forest.
yeah.
And I'm talking about back when they won the Champions League, or So you look at that and you go, well, you can call it what you want, you know. It's Notts Forest to me. So they can do what they like.
That's it. Apologies to anybody watching for Nottingham.
Right? No, I've said they've had an outstanding season. What more do they
No,
want? They want to
listen,
get the name
they've had an
right.
absolutely tremendous season, sitting in third
Oh,
place at this
absolutely
point in the
brilliant.
season. If they
You
get
know,
European football at all, whether it's Champions League, Europa
yes,
League, Conference League, it's been a hell of an achievement. You know what I mean? Under
they
the
deserve
gaffer.
it.
Oh,
Definitely deserve it.
100%,
Yeah,
100%.
even although they're Nottingham, not Notts, so they definitely deserve it.
Yeah, be
So
interesting to
anyway,
see what's written in the two
down to
Champions League trophies they've got.
yeah, I know. Let's move down now to the also rans, Man United, and then Tottenham sitting close to each other, a point of difference, 38 and 37. Uh, what's happened to these two? I mean, Tottenham's still in, the Europa League, but so
As
is
a
Man
Man
United.
United.
But you say to yourself, it means nothing in a lot of ways for the fact that these clubs need to be up there in that top half dozen. And I don't know whether change a manager. I've never really signed up for the manager that went to Man United. There was always something that
Almiron.
I thought, yeah, there was always something in my mind that said, I don't know if he's a good fit. I know his pedigree and everything was brilliant, Cammy, but I look at it and I go, it didn't ring true to me. I just felt maybe he was a bit young for that role of that club and the
Hmm.
magnitude of it. And you might say, well, his pedigree says otherwise. Well, it's just a gut feeling. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's the case and it's turned out that way, but he's not made any inroads. And I tell you what, it's going to be a massive summer for him because if he doesn't hit the ground running after the season finishes by making sure he's got good signings in there, he'll be out the door before the end of September. And that's a sorry state, but that's the way Manchester United will look at it because the season's done for them in my eyes. And the Tottenham situation is not far behind them. Ange Postecoglou, I think, will leave at the end of the season. Even if he did go and win the Europa League, I think he will still leave the club. And he'll go away saying, well, I've delivered what I always do, and that's a cup every
Yeah.
second year
Every
for the
second
club's
year.
in it.
Yeah.
So he'll look at his success. I don't think Tottenham supporters would. Uh, So I'm glad I don't just call them Spurs because somebody else might be offended by that. So, but they've not been great. Their consistency's been poor. I look at their league form and look at the last half dozen games. They won the last match, they lost two, they drew one, they lost, and then they won a match. Then you say to yourself, that's not a successful Tottenham. They're just like they're about the West Ham just now. West Ham could go and play Southampton or one of the bottom teams and lose it. I think Tottenham's in the same boat, and I just don't think that the quality of player that is at the two clubs is going to be good enough for them to see themselves at the situation that they're in.
I mean, Spurs have been decimated this season with injury. I think that we've had a couple of Spurs supporters on, obviously, various times, and that they have been really decimated with injury. That's the one thing that both of them agree about.
Yeah.
I think Andy Burrows and obviously your mate, who have been on as well, Steve, who have both been on, they have said Postecoglou has failing to deliver. I think Andy Burrows basically would drive him to Heathrow, if it got him away from the club, that's for sure, But I think, give him his due, they have been absolutely bloated with injury. Manchester United have no excuses. Manchester United are a very, very poor club in a very, very poor situation just now.
Mm-hmm.
The previous manager was all over the place. They wasted countless hundreds of millions of pounds on players who were not Manchester United quality, the likes of the boy Anthony, who they spent something like 90 million quid on. Ajax must have been rubbing their hands when he left the club, particularly when you look at what Liverpool brought from their neighbours at PSV Eindhoven for considerably less money. They've got a goalkeeper who I think you and I could outplay.
No,
He
I don't
is,
know about
he
that.
is, and listen, he's abysmal. I mean, he made two horrific mistakes last night. Certainly one anyway. The second one maybe give him the benefit of the doubt a wee bit, but I mean, he's hopeless. They can't field a centre back pairing for any more than maybe one or two games consistently. Their fullbacks, the boy they brought in, the young boy they brought in at right back, he looks decent. But that's about it. They can't get anything settled up front. They've got a manager who can't settle on a striker. I think Almiron, given the chance to bring his own players in, will do a job, but he's proving at the moment to be very, very stubborn and is not prepared to change the system that he's came to Old Trafford with, despite the fact that the players seem to struggle to adapt to this system that he's wanting to play. But they're two very, very poor sides, both Manchester United and Spurs, and I think it's a measure of how bad they are that an Everton side who were tipped for relegation could well finish above them in the table this season as well. Since David Moyes came in, Everton have been a bit hit and miss, a bit, again, we're going to say like West Ham, but they have picked up a number of vital points. They've picked up points against both Manchester United and Spurs, in fact. So I think it's a measure of just how bad these sides are, that they're below Crystal Palace, they're below Brighton, they're below Bournemouth, who are sides who are going to finish mid-table in that Premiership.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how Everton go at the weekend. They've got Nottingham Forest. Got it right, Cammy. Nottingham Forest tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's a big test because you're looking at West Ham and Everton on the same points. And, and at 13th position in that league is 38 points. So it's quite a jump if you look at West Ham in 16 to 13, if they can get 3 points under their belt. So there's an element there where you say Everton have drawn an awful lot of games, but they have showed a real strength and commitment to the matches compared to what it used to be before David Moyes came in. I think they've vastly improved, even though they've not had many victories under him. But I'll tell you what, I think the team is night and day. And they were, as you rightly said, they were another Wolves at one point. They were looking as if they were definitely in that bottom three. And,
So,
you look at them now and they're safe. They're definitely safe.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Sean Dyche was a disaster as a manager there, I mean, let's be fair, when you go for Sean Dyche to Davy Moyes, and Davy Moyes is proves to be more attack minded and
Mm-hmm.
that gets you more goals and whatever
Yeah.
else. That's a measure of how bad your previous manager was, because Moyes is not renowned as being an attack minded manager. But moving away from the Premier League, moving away from down south into to events back north of the border. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, shock results at the weekend. Both Rangers getting beat and Celtic getting beat as well at the weekend. Celtic's result probably more of a shock because Hibs have been having a decent bit of form. The only
Mhm.
thing was Rangers were absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, well, that's the second time that's happened that the old firm have been beaten in the same day this
Yeah,
season. I mean, it's been a very, very strange season throughout when you look at the whole the whole Premier League in its own, where it started off where Hibs and Hearts were looking as if, well, we always said for day one they would never be in that relegation zone, but they were at one point, and
yeah,
it was a gradual progression. And then you look at Celtic, who, in real terms, should have had the league possibly won by now, uh, drifting away. And again, I think that's maybe complacency more than anything else, as well as the club not managing the players correctly. And by that, I mean selling players.
hmm
Celtic took the cheap option in the window not to actually expand on bringing in a centre forward, and they've had been caught out by it.
yeah,
You would never have dreamt that St Johnstone would have scored one goal and it would have been enough to beat
yeah,
Celtic on Sunday, who didn't score at all. When did Celtic not last score? And I look at that and I go, Kyogo should never have left the club. And I've said it on here before. I think that was mismanagement by Brendan Rodgers because he had other nationals with him there. And I just find that very, very strange that wee boy, and I say wee boy in height wise, I'm not talking about age, has ended up that he's going to another country that by all accounts he's not setting the hell on fire. And he was doing a great job at Parkhead.
yeah,
Absolutely brilliant. And that was a reason that Celtic, as far as I'm concerned, were a very, very strong attacking team. I think they've lost that now. I'm not saying
yeah,
that they're going to do anything other than win the league, but I think that was because the board didn't decided that they didn't need to actually buy anybody in the window. In other words, keep the money in their pocket, as I've done many a time. And in my eyes, I've said it all the time. That board of directors shortchanged the supporters regularly
yeah,
by selling players, not replacing them unless it's a cheap option, or in some cases, they've bought players in that are no fit for purpose. And I'll tell you what, there's more goes out of Celtic Park than you would imagine that have flopped, and they've
yeah,
spent good money on them. But
yeah,
it never seems to hit. It never seems to get above the parapet because Celtic have been doing so well.
hmm
But they need to start really seriously looking at what they want to do at Parkhead in relation to Champions League because they will be in the Champions League. But are they going to make a bigger effort than they did this year? I think that they've got to start spending some of that money rather than it going somewhere that we don't really know where it's ending up.
yeah,
Supporters are paying good money to watch Celtic, and they're miles ahead of Rangers in all departments at this moment in time. You might say, well, Rangers have beaten them the last twice. That means nothing. You're talking about the whole league, and there's a massive gap there that I think Celtic will abuse that fact by not spending as much money as they need to, because they'll just look across the city and say, we can go next year and do the exact same thing. Even if the new people supposedly come into Ibrox, I don't think it will make one iota all next year because
no, it
one,
shouldn't
they'll
do.
get a good manager, and two, they'll have to settle up all the financial problems they've got at this moment of time, and then that guy has got to identify who's going to come in and play well for Rangers. I think they've got a real problem in going forward in the next 18 months anyway. But
Yeah,
it would be good if they could get their act together and come out fighting against Celtic, especially if they don't spend money and let Celtic get their fingers burnt by that sort of a negative approach.
they need to
Uh,
get closer. At the end of the day, Rangers
oh,
need to be closer to Celtic. They need to be mounting some kind of some kind of serious challenge, and that's the thing. Scottish football consistently will continue to be a laughing stock because it's deemed a two-team league. We're not even that anymore at the moment, but it's been a one-team league for the last 3 or 4 seasons since Steven Gerrard won the Premier League as Rangers manager. It's been a one-team league pretty much. And as I say, I think we are pretty much a laughing stock in terms of British football, certainly, because you're still down south. You can still pair many 1 for 4 or 5 to go ahead and win that Premiership, although it's been Manchester City and Liverpool consistently the last few seasons. But at least you're getting a challenge from maybe Arsenal, from Chelsea. You've had Newcastle mounting some kind of challenge. Forest, as we say, and you go, we'll miss out the Notts or not, and I'll just call them Forest. They've been decent this season as well, and bring that up to here. We've had Hibs have been outstanding since the turn of the year. David Gray's gone from favourite from relegation 2 months into the season to probably the biggest candidate for manager of the year. And what a turnaround at Easter Road. Couldn't have been more delighted for Hibs fans at the weekend, going to Ibrox and getting a victory. But you counter that with obviously what's happening at Ibrox, and I mean, who's, I think Steven Gerrard was the last man to win a home game as Rangers manager. It almost feels like that it's been so long since they've had a victory at Ibrox, and the one thing that we're looking at that's keeping Scottish football on the edge of its seats, if you like, is the fact that this weekend we've got a game between Hearts and Motherwell. And that's pretty much for which side's going to finish sixth, and if that's all we can hang our hats on, that Scottish football is going to be something to get broadcasters investing in and get fans to watch, we're in a sorry state up here.
I think there's a lot of it though, and I touched on it there, that the team with money are not investing it onto the park, and that's why we're poor. But if Celtic are going to invest and invest wisely, and we look at saying the Premier League is poor, then we should be going out against, we'll use A team, right? And the days seem to have gone by where Ross County should be beaten 8-9-0, St Mirren maybe, battered, Kilmarnock. All these teams are not being annihilated as they should be if you spend the money that Celtic have got to not just get through it 3-0, 4-0. That's okay. That's absolutely brilliant. But I still don't think that's acceptable when you've got that amount of money. And the recognition you will get is, an example, when you come up against St Johnstone, who everybody was rattling their gums about St Johnstone going down in the back of Celtic, giving them a thrashing on Sunday. And that never happened.
No, it never happened.
Because that Celtic bench that they've got is poor, to say the least. And I think to myself, financially, what are you really thinking that you want? Just to beat Rangers every year? Because what you're doing is you're bringing the rest of the Premier League down. And I think it's disrespectful. Mm-hmm. The rest of the Premier League teams are cutting their cloth accordingly, Cammy. I'm surprised some of them are still in business.
Yeah.
And then when you look at it and make a comparison with England, I would always make it a comparison with the lesser teams, with some of the non-league teams that are down south. They're paying the same sort of money. So look at all the leagues in front of that, and we're looking at some of our teams in my head thinking, we watched Tottenham playing in the FA Cup, and I watched a team there that could easily, and I know it's a cup tie, easily have competed in their championship or the bottom half of your Premiership. Now, the guys will probably be in the same money as some of our lesser Premier League teams. So we can't even be looking at potentially getting television rights when they look at the financials and they look at the performances and they say what's actually been done in the Premier League to bolster this and make it worthwhile for us to invest and come and watch these matches. Well, Rangers certainly haven't done it. They've been flushed down the toilet this season without any question of a doubt. And Celtic, as I've just said, have not invested to let people see that they're going forward.
Yeah.
The rest just put into a goldfish bowl and pull out a couple of names. The ones that we do expect, though, and we really thought they'd set the heather on fire, was Aberdeen. Now, they're still sitting in fourth place because he's had no bad last half dozen games where he's only lost one, right? But when you look at that, we were sitting here probably about the end of September thinking that...
Much more recent than that, Dennis.
Yeah, well, maybe so, aye. Well, we did think, when they were starting to have be in that run, been undefeated, what was it, 12, 13 games? And then we're thinking, hey, they're definitely going to be battling for second place.
Yeah.
No, never happened. They've done well with sitting fourth place, Aberdeen. But again, they're lightweight. Hibs and Hearts, Aberdeen, Celtic Rangers, and another, maybe Dundee United or someone else. That to me is your top flight. And I don't think it'll ever change because of the financial restrictions. Dundee could potentially push forward, but they've been so inconsistent. It's ridiculous. I mean, they're sitting in 11th spot. And I actually thought at the start of the season they were making a real go of it. Just falling away. Although they had a good result on Saturday, 2-0 against St Mirren. But no, I believe, I know what you're saying, Cammy, about how bad we look in England. Very few people do I talk to actually watch our Scottish games now. That's what they think of it. Because you get saturation point. It's a bit like somebody saying to me, well, Scotland women are going to be playing Germany. That's a wee game for you to watch. You'll get plenty of goals, and it'll not be for Scotland. No, there's enough football out there, and that's not having a go at women's football. It's the fact that I've got enough games that I can watch of quality, right? It takes me all my time now when I know there's a banana skin waiting somewhere around the corner for Rangers in Europe.
Yeah.
And I watched it from start to finish, and I'm thinking, it's got to get good at some point.
Yeah, and you're still waiting.
Yeah.
But anyway, fixtures this weekend, Dennis. What have we got this weekend before we finish talking about Europe?
It's a wee bit doom and gloom, but I don't think it's as bad when you look at the financial restraints that we have in Scotland, Cammy. I really don't. I don't think it's a great product to be selling, but there is a standard there that's better than, what would you say, some other countries, what you would expect maybe better. I'm not talking Germany, France and things like that, but it's decent enough. Celtic will get Kilmarnock.
I'll tell you what, while you're talking about that, here's a fact that I heard, and it's an interesting one, and it's something we probably could maybe touch on at some point in time. Do you know that per head of population, that percentage-wise, the Scottish Premier League is actually the best supported league in Europe?
Yeah, that does.
Per head of population, and you're right. We're very, very critical at times of our league. I've just spent 3 or 4 minutes slaughtering it. But per head of population, that our Premier League is the best supported league in Europe. Okay, you can make stats sound however you want, but there's obviously a market there. There's fans still paying their money, still paying through the gate to go and watch the game. It would just be nice if we could actually have a product that we could sell for a wee bit more money to broadcasters. That our league is not financially worse off than the second or third leagues in England. So that's all I would say.
I would honestly say that Scotland have got good, true, loyal supporters. We did talk last week about the lower divisions, and we were talking about Clyde and that, where they had 700 supporters on average. And it's low, but again, there's other things goes on now, Cammy, that basically there's distractions from it. And I don't think that there is, what would you say, the same magnet, especially even times. You look at times, there's some ridiculous times that games have been on. We're managing, and we seem to accept that games on Sundays are just the norm. I know with European ties have got to be like that, but I look at that and I go, Sunday, 13th of April, Hibs versus Dundee at 2:30. Why? That game should be played on Saturday. So I think sometimes it's distracting away from real Saturday football. Maybe it's just because I'm old-fashioned, but unless there's been a European tie the club's involved in, it should always be your Saturday matches. But anyway.
Anyway, back to the fixtures, and then we'll finish with Europe.
The fixtures for tomorrow are Celtic and Kilmarnock, that's 12:30 as I said. Dundee United have St Johnstone at 3 o'clock, Motherwell 3 o'clock against Hearts, and St Mirren Ross County also 3. Sunday's games is Aberdeen against Rangers at 12 o'clock, and as I've just mentioned, Hibs are playing Dundee at 2:30. Let's go back to the one that you touched on very briefly, and that was Motherwell are playing Hearts. And that is to get in, more or less, to the top six. Because at this moment in time, Motherwell and Hearts are 38 points with Motherwell, 39 points with Hearts. Who do you fancy? Yeah, St Mirren's on 38 points as well, and they've got Ross County, so they're involved in it as well.
So Hearts win tomorrow.
Yeah,
they're in. Motherwell win tomorrow, and St Mirren get beat. Yeah. Motherwell are in.
Yeah,
you know, Motherwell and Hearts draw, and St Mirren win. St Mirren are in. You know, right. So why then on Sunday, if we've got games for TV, why is the Motherwell Hearts game not on TV? And why is the St Mirren Ross County game not on TV when it's the only two meaningful fixtures over the weekend?
Correct.
And there's why we do not sell our product. Yeah. You know, that's why we can't sell the product.
Yeah. They are, in my eyes, cup ties, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's back to the point which I'm saying, keep it traditional. But as you've rightly said, the two fixtures there should have been played on the Sunday or an earlier kickoff. Mm-hmm. I just don't get it. And again, I don't know if the people that are actually organising these things are buying into what Scottish football's about. Have they really got the passion and the understanding of what we're talking about just now, and really understanding what we've just discussed and what encourages people to watch matches?
Yeah.
Or do they just go, well, 3 o'clock's free. Well, Motherwell can play Hearts. There's no question you've just brought up.
Aye, that's why they don't sell the product.
No.
You know, that's why broadcasters do not need to fork out decent money to buy Scottish TV. To buy Scottish football for the TV, because
you could be selling that, Cammy. You can be selling that if you're looking at selling the game. The reasons behind them being on the television, the reasons being this is major because potentially it allows you a chance to get into Europe, and it makes you then think, wait a minute, if you don't get in, you could be in a relegation battle, and yet you could be sitting on 6th or 7th spot.
Particularly, Dennis, when they're talking about how vital it is to get in a top 6 place. You know, they try to sell us this top 6, bottom 6. You know, that split, that finishing in the top 6 is vital, and you know, we need it, and every club needs it, and every club's aiming for it, and everything else, you know, and it's what keeps our league interesting. It's why we don't have league reconstruction. It's why this and why that. And then we go and do something just naive. We do not sell the game to the television or have the game on TV. Nonsense. Anyway, other games over the weekend.
You know, I said to you 2 weeks ago, why have we got the split?
Yeah.
Why have we got the split? If that's how these games are actually treated, what's the point of the split?
What's the point?
The two matches you've talked about, Motherwell, Hearts, St Mirren, Ross County, they are as key as any other game that you could talk about within Britain, right?
Yeah.
Because that is our Premier League. And
because they're trying to punt a split that nobody wants. Honestly. You know, it's fucking nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But hey, it is what it is. You know, there you go. There's the championship game tonight. Falkirk tonight can win the league if Livingston get beat tomorrow. And that game's live on the television tonight. So somebody can do it. So why can the SPFL or the SPL, the powers that be that are running the top league, not turn around and say, right, well, let's get these two games on the TV?
I think you've got a different culture, and it's like two different organisations that are running. Yeah. You've got an arrogance within the Premier League structure that thinks they are a be all and end all of everything, right?
Yep.
And you know, I touched on it there. What kind of person sitting looking at putting the fixtures in without maybe saying to the guy next to him, listen, see the fixtures, are they not going to be really important? I'll tell you what, let's juggle it about and we'll get them on the television.
It's landed lovely.
And promote it. We'll promote it.
Yeah.
And the guy's probably sitting next to him going, what do you mean promote? What does promote mean? Because that's what we're dealing with in this country with football. There's some numpties in there that are actually tuned to the moon when it comes to selling our football as a product.
Yeah.
Hopeless. Anyway, that's my rant.
Dennis, I like my American football, and in American football, they've got their TV games. The TV games are set quite early in the season.
Yeah.
But there's 3 or 4 games a season where they can flex the fixtures and they can move it to a TV slot.
Yeah.
And they have that ability to do that. Not obviously every game, every week, or whatever else, but if there's a big game there, if somebody turns out to, like my Washington Commanders did last season, if somebody turns out to have a fantastic season, they can turn around a surprisingly fantastic season, they can flex a couple of games for the TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why don't we allow ourselves the ability to do that? Because who decided that Hibs on a Sunday afternoon was more? Anyway, we've covered it umpteen times and we're running on. So let's look at the Championship fixtures. Obviously tonight, Falkirk Ayr United kick off at Somerset Park in about 4 minutes.
4 minutes, yeah. Okay. Looking back at some of the results, just quickly on them, I'll tell you what, Airdrie got a good result against Partick Thistle. Unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, they're only 3 points adrift for Dunfermline.
Yep.
And that would be a right banana skin for the new manager at Dunfermline and Neil Lennon if they ended up going to bottom spot. Because we know that the figures that somebody told us a few weeks ago that he was on financially to do this job. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to watch that space. It's not done yet by any manner of means.
Oh, here's hoping. Here's hoping that McCabe can get a result.
Avoiding it. I'd like to see Airdrie avoiding it, even in the playoff. Dunfermline went down 1-0 to Hamilton Accies. Falkirk 5, Morton 0. Well, if that's no telling me that they are going to be champions, I'll leave my on it. I've said it for day one. I just felt they had the right gel for this division to go there and win the league. It's not done yet, but I think Morton can do Falkirk a real turn because they've done it last week. And then if they beat Livingston tomorrow, then Falkirk
win tonight. Game's done. League's done.
Livingston are not going to be easy for Morton to beat. Livingston beat Queen's Park last week 3-0. Wraith Rovers had a great result against Ayr United 1-0. Good results. Looking at the fixtures, is Morton have Livingston, Partick Thistle, Hamilton, Queen's Park, Dunfermline, and Wraith Rovers have Airdrieonians. And then it might not be relevant, but come next Friday, you've got Livingston are playing Ayr United. So it'll be interesting to see how this game goes tonight and tomorrow. So there's a lot of good fixtures in there, Cammy. Moving into... Sorry?
You look at that championship, Dennis, and you're talking about Airdrie are in with a shout at catching Dunfermline. They're in with a shout at catching Hamilton. And Queen's Park with the most mindless managerial change a few weeks ago. Are only 6 points off bottom spot. They're only 3 points off of the second playoffs, off of the playoff spot. So Queen's Park could end up beating Rangers at Ibrox and knocking them out of the Scottish Cup and getting relegated the same season. And that's, as I say, a completely and utterly mindless decision by the board.
They deserve everything they get.
Yep.
Everything. And I'd be quite happy if Queen's Park went down. The simple reason being it's disgusting in the way that they thought they'd arrived. Did they think they were going to get into Europe by beating Rangers? Get a reality check. The manager was doing exceptionally well for you. A club history result against Rangers, and you go and give the guy the sack when the atmosphere for that game hasn't even died down. Get a look at yourself, Queen's Park directors. Absolutely shocking. It's one of the worst decisions throughout the UK on management decisions all year, if not a number of years. And I'm just looking at it here. I don't know. I'm only going back the last 6 games. They've lost a lot of them. Yeah. So they deserve to go down. And
100%.
Yeah. So anyway,
100%.
let's see what happens. So they've got Dunfermline, which will be a battle because Dunfermline's got to prove something tomorrow. So between the two of them, that is a crunch match. Wraith Rovers have Airdrie, and as I said, the Friday match you've got Ayr United. Let's move
If
into
Dunfermline win that game
yep.
tomorrow, they move above Queen's Park.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep.
You know, that's all Dunfermline need to do is win. They've got the same amount of goal difference. So if Dunfermline win that, their goal difference will improve to better than Queen's Park, and Queen's Park will drop to second bottom, potentially depending how Hamilton got on. You know, so no, here's hoping that Queen's Park finish rock bottom of that table.
Yeah, only because not because there's anything nasty other than the fact that the position of the board sacking the manager after a repeat, unbelievable.
Yeah, they deserve it.
Yeah,
they deserve
it. Yeah. Anyway, so that division, without going on any more about it, is really tight in a lot of ways. Not just because if you look at Morton had three back-to-back wins, then they drew, then they lost the last two. And it only takes a couple of games, but I think a lot of teams now in that division, they've run out of matches, Cammy.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with it, but it's been tight all season. So it's still not decided yet. We'll see what happens tonight and also tomorrow. Moving into League One, last week's results, just going through them, was Annan got beat with Queen of the South 2-0. Cove Rangers took a bit of a beating off Inverness Cali 3-0. Dumbarton beat Kelty Hearts 6-0 away from home.
Yeah, a shocker.
Montrose went down 1-0 to Arbroath, and Stenhousemuir took a heavy defeat of 4-1 from Alloa Athletic. Sitting at the top, Arbroath. Good result against Montrose, but at the same time, you're expecting Arbroath now to maybe kick on. I don't know how many
One
points
victory, they've done it.
Is that
one win will do it. Yeah, one win will do it. 12 to play for. They're 11 points in front.
Yeah, they've had a good run. Cove Rangers, well, poor, up and down all the time. You know, they had a run there, then they drew two, and the last two they've lost. And I think that paid any chances they had at being there. But they're getting to the playoffs. Stenhousemuir's been decent, but again, last 5 games they've drawn 2 and they've lost 3.
Yeah.
So you say to yourself, what's happened to them? And that was a heavy defeat against Alloa. You think Queen of the South, again, 45 points, not enough to be, what would you say they're safe, because the team below them, Alloa's got 44. Then Montrose below them, 39. So Dumbarton, well, we know they're away, so it is where it is in that front. And then you've got Annan, who are sitting at 33 points, with Inverness Cali in 36. I'll tell you what, I think Inverness Cali's done exceptionally well, considering what happened to them at the start of the season, you know. So,
well, if they hadn't had that points deduction, they'd been second place.
Yeah. Let's look at the fixtures. Alloa have got Annan tomorrow. Dumbarton, Cove Rangers, Inverness Cali, Kelty Hearts, Queen of the South have Montrose, and a 5:30 kick-off is Arbroath versus Stenhousemuir. Now, somebody's obviously had the vision in that one, which to say 5:30 will be on the TV. So that'll be a good fixture, actually, because Stenhousemuir are sitting in the third spot. Very, very good.
And Arbroath, if they win, go up.
Yeah, that's right.
Win the league.
There's something in it. Yeah.
Somebody's thinking somewhere.
Yeah, well, again, it's leagues rather than Premier League. Moving into League Two, we'll talk about your own club going down 2-1 to Edinburgh City. We'll come back to them in a minute. Elgin City getting beaten 2-0 by Stirling Albion. Forfar beating East Fife 1-0. And Peterhead winning 5-0 against Bonnyrigg Rose. And Spartans beating Stranraer 2-1.
Yeah.
Top of the league is, as I had thought, still a bit to go. Peterhead are sitting at 60 points. East Fife are below them, 4 behind, 56. Edinburgh City, 52. And Elgin City in 49. Then you look at the rest of the division, and your own Clyde is sitting in 36, Cammy. That was probably a bad result, but having said that, Edinburgh City have been going well, Cammy. I know they're inconsistent, but they've been win-loss. It's a bit like that with them, and you just happen to be the week. Clyde just happened to be the week.
They were due a win.
Week.
Yeah.
So, but No, I don't know. I don't think that'll change. I know you look at it, there's only 4 points in it between East Fife and Peterhead. And when you look at the fixtures, you've got Peterhead have got Spartans tomorrow, and Bonnie Rig Rose have got East Fife.
East
So
Fife. Yeah.
there is a chance there that East Fife can get closer, but I can't see Peterhead getting beaten at home by Spartans. So no, I still think that Peterhead will maybe do it. So the fixtures is Bonnyrigg Rose, East Fife, Clyde Forfar, Edinburgh City Elgin, Peterhead Spartans, and Stirling Albion have Stranraer. Your own thoughts on Forfar? They're just above you, Cammy, in the league.
No, 4 for 3 behind Clyde.
Sorry. Aye,
3 points behind Clyde.
yeah,
If Clyde get a victory tomorrow, that's two sides this season that haven't beat Clyde. That'd be Forfar and Stranraer
yeah,
having played the 4 games. The other side that haven't beat Clyde this season, believe it or not, is Peterhead.
yeah.
So if Clyde can get something tomorrow from that game, I mean, the Clyde are targeting finishing 8th now. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's pretty much maybe 7th, depending on what happens with Stranraer. And that's obviously a disastrous season in terms, obviously, what the aspirations were at the start of the season. The expectations were that Clyde would be challenging for promotion up there
Yeah,
with Peterhead, East Fife, and Elgin City. And Edinburgh City would be the also rans within the table. As it is, Clyde thumped Edinburgh City earlier on in the cup. They beat them 5-0 through in Edinburgh. And since then, I think Edinburgh City have taken 12 points out of 12 from them in the league.
but
And that speaks volumes, as I say, where Clyde are. Darren Young's come in. He's tried his best. He obviously came in at a time where Clyde had a massive injury crisis. Very, very few fit players. I think they lost about half a squad, believe it or not, in 2 Glasgow Cup ties against both Rangers and Celtic. And that decimated Clyde and really had them struggling once he came in. He couldn't put a consistent side on the park. He's got that now. And you talk about sides who are inconsistent. Pardon me, Clyde are the same. They've been inconsistent for much of the last dozen or so games. That they had a dismal away record. They then went 4 unbeaten away from home. They had a really good home record, and they then lost 3 in the bounce at home. So
mhm.
I think tomorrow, if Clyde can get a result at home to Forfar, it will secure them that they don't finish in either of the bottom 2 places. I think Bonnyrigg Rose are done. The points deduction has really done for them. But look at League Two. It's the only league where 4 games to go, you really are still in with a wonder as to who's going to win the league. And
Yeah,
maybe our bottom leagues not as bad as what we make it out to be.
but nobody has went in a major run, and I'm looking at the league other than Peterhead.
Yeah,
They're the only team in the last half dozen that I'm looking back on that haven't lost a game. You look
yeah,
at East Fife; they've lost 4 out of their last 6.
yeah,
Yeah. And then obviously Bonnyrigg have not won any, but the rest are all up and down. Elgin City went in a wee run, 3 games back to back. Spartans for a couple of games, but nobody has got the bull by the horns in that division other than Peterhead
yeah.
and driven it forward. So
I mean,
I'll tell you what, there's a wee bit to play for there. So we'll wait and see what happens with it.
Clyde will have a big say because their last 2 home games, I think, are going to be against Peterhead and East Fife.
Yeah.
So Clyde will have a bit of a say as to who wins the league. The only disappointing thing is, as a Clyde fan, that it's not them.
No, no. Anyway.
But
Okay.
anyway, moving in quickly to Europe.
Europe.
Obviously, we've
Yeah.
had the
Well,
European fixtures, the Champions League Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Arsenal
yeah.
comfortable 3-0 victors against Real Madrid. Where on
Incredible.
earth did they find a free kicks for? Outstanding free kicks. I think it's the first free kicks that Declan Rice has ever scored in his life. So, one, where did they find the balls to take them? And 2, where did they find the ability to put them in the back of the net? Because I think he's been one of the most overrated, overvalued players that's been in English football for the last half a dozen years.
Mm.
We then look at Aston Villa, who were in the game, even though they were obviously really completely and utterly destroyed and taken apart by Paris Saint-Germain. They were in the game right up into the final kick of the ball when Paris Saint-Germain got the goal to make it 3-1. We then look at Europa League, 3 draws for the British sides, Manchester United at Lyon, Rangers at home, playing most of the game with 10 men, so fair play to them for that. At least they stopped the rot in terms of obviously consecutive home defeats, but they've still got the home victory. And as I say, since Jesus was a boy, and obviously we've had the Spurs drawing with Eintracht Frankfurt, and then Chelsea 3-0 away victors. As I say, they've pretty much got that competition sewn up. So that's the measure of the British sides in Europe this week.
Well, I watched the Arsenal game, the second half. Was it? No, it wasn't.
You've seen the good bits.
No, well, the thing was, I actually dipped in and out of it, right? And I was in a position where I'm thinking to myself, is this game going to go anywhere, right? Because I thought, watching the start of it, Real Madrid would just run over the top of them. So I came away from watching it. And then I come back in the second half. What a second half it was.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, there is a massive gulf when you look at domestic football. I'm talking English Premier League as well. And certainly when you look at our Scottish Premiership, between Champions League and the domestic side, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The talent that they have is incredible. Now, you might say, well, Arsenal's in the Premier League, but I'm talking about when these games come around, Aston Villa's the same. I think they've done exceptionally well. You just need to look at their touch. Sometimes I just can't believe that we haven't played a little bit. And I look at it and I go, how did they manage to control that? Yeah. And then you mentioned it. Declan Rice, no, there was a period where I thought it was horrendous. He seems to have come good a wee while ago. And there's been times when I thought he's not been the worst England player. But I'll tell you what, the 2 goals. First of all, he lines up to take the free kick, and I'm going, he's no chance of scoring for them. I had my exact words to myself, talking to myself as usual. He's no chance of scoring for there. What a goal. Absolutely world class. Then the second one lines up to take a free kick, and I'm a dafty again. I'm going, he's no
You're
chance.
Not doing it twice.
He's no chance of getting free kick. And to be honest, it was as good as the first one.
Yeah.
Totally world class. Anybody in the world would have been impressed with the free kicks. Yeah. If you haven't seen them for Declan Rice, go on YouTube and get a look at them because they were magnificent. And because you got all the different angles, every time I looked at it, it got better. Absolutely amazing, right? Yeah. And if people in the terraces can't understand what I'm rabbiting on about, they're not in touch with reality, what football's about, because that was outstanding. And the result overall, incredible. In fact, the third goal, or the final goal, was even better.
Yeah, the well-worked goal.
No better, but you know what I mean? It was really a good finish as well.
Fantastic, well-worked goals.
Yeah. The other games, as you say, you've just touched on it. Aston Villa punching above their weight, as I've said though. PSG for me, I think their name's already on it because Real Madrid should never have been beaten 3-0 by Arsenal because I don't think Arsenal's got what it takes. But I'll tell you what, Real Madrid are going to have a massive job next week to come back against that 3-0.
But Arsenal are a side that can win 3-0 one week and then can go to the Bernabeu and get beat 5-1. And Real Madrid are the side that can do it. They've done it before. They've done it before. I don't think so. No. I think defensively they should have enough, but they've got a good young keeper. They've got an outstanding keeper in David Raya. They're decent at the back. It just depends. Does he want to go there and try and soak up pressure? Or does he want to play Arsenal's natural game and try and score a couple of goals, So, but as I say, they are a side that can go and lose quite easily 5-1 over there. That's the thing.
Who's your semi-finalists then? Barcelona's 4-0 up. Are they going to go through?
Barcelona are through.
Yeah.
I think Inter Milan, PSG Inter Milan
Yeah.
and Arsenal. Yeah, it's very, very hard to see a side coming back from 3
Aye.
nothing down. Real
Uh,
Madrid are the side that can do it, and Arsenal are the side that can throw it away. But
yeah.
I think the 4 sides that won in the first leg are the 4 sides that are going to win it. From
Mhm.
them, who goes on and win it? I know you say about PSG.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to see by Barcelona. I think
Mhm.
Inter Milan are going to be a very, very difficult side to beat. Um, and Arsenal, they're going to be the sole representatives of the UK, the sole representatives of England. I think if they're in the semi-finals, they're probably the also runs. I think they're probably the least favoured side.
Mhm. Anyway,
So
good stuff. Absolutely
be
brilliant.
interesting. Be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, we've done it. We've come in at an hour. That's not
Yeah.
bad. It's half an hour longer than we were going to say, but
Yeah.
we both knew before the show we were never getting half an hour. So
Yeah.
we've come in at an hour. Um, Again, no news to talk about, and we've still managed to make it last 60 minutes. So fair play to, or
Mhm.
whatever else you want to call it for us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much as always, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. As I
Yep.
say to anybody listening, go ahead as always, like, share, subscribe, tell your pals. It helps us out a lot, you know what I mean? And the more listeners, maybe one of these days Dennis will be able to retire, but who knows if we can start making some money for YouTube.
Oh,
But listen, thanks very much. As I said earlier on, the show next week will be pre-recorded. We will record it on the Thursday night and probably put it out on the Friday, early doors on the Friday, because as I say, we've got holiday commitments. The following week, we've still to see exactly what we're happening, but we'll maybe talk about that next week once we're in a better place to know what's happening. But as I say, thank you as always. Thanks very much. Go along to a game tomorrow. I'm going along to the Falkirk Stadium where East Stirling will be playing Gretna. You're more than welcome if you can if you can't to join me. But as it is just now, good night. We'll see you next week.